Introduction. When David saw the time on his digital clock, he was startled. 7 a.m. already. He wasn't going to be late for his biology class 2 days in a row, was he? He combed his hair, thought about trimming his fingernails, grabbed his cell phone, wallet, and car keys, bare essentials as he called them, and headed for the door. On his way out, he drank some juice out of a plastic bottle, tied his shoelaces, and continued his race against time. As soon as he got to his car, David noticed a flat tire. What a start, he thought. He was almost finished fixing the tire when his sister brought him a bagel and some milk in a takeaway cup. "Sweet ending to a bad morning," said a smiling David to his sister. While David was rushing to get to school, he did a lot of things. He combed his hair. He thought about trimming his fingernails. He drank some juice and ate a bagel, and so on. What do all the bolded items have in common? They are all polymers. The word polymer originates from the Greek words polis, meaning many, and meris, meaning part, implying that a polymer is something that has many parts. We humans, too, are made up of polymers. Our bodies continuously create and break apart polymers. What are these polymers that play such a vital role in biological systems? Polymers and monomers. Polymers, the macromolecules of life. Let's start by reviewing what atoms, elements, and molecules are. The atom is the basic unit of all matter. It has a nucleus that contains protons and neutrons. Electrons revolve around the nucleus. Protons are always positive, and electrons are always negative. But neutrons are neither positive nor negative. Similar atoms combine to form elements. Elements occur naturally or can be created in laboratories. Molecules are combinations of elements. A common example of a molecule is water, which is made up of 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. In living beings, small molecules in cells come together to form larger molecules. Carbohydrates, proteins, and even our DNA are examples of these larger molecules. A single protein molecule can contain hundreds of thousands of atoms. Monomers, the building blocks of polymers. Just as several atoms come together to form an element, and elements form molecules, polymers are also formed by the joining of several smaller units, or molecules. These molecules, which link together to form polymers, are called monomers. Monomers are thus the molecule-level building blocks of polymers. Glucose, amino acids, and nucleotides are examples of monomers. These components are the building blocks of other molecules. For example, glucose units come together to form large cellulose and starch molecules. Similarly, amino acids in various combinations form protein molecules. Nucleotides serve as the monomers for nucleic acids, such as DNA and RNA. Monomers, the building blocks of polymers, can be thought of as a chain, like the different types of cars on a train. Hundreds of thousands of monomers, even millions of them, can connect or join together to form polymers. Because polymers are larger structures made up of numerous monomer molecules, polymers are often called macromolecules. While polymers can contain thousands or millions of monomers, a polymer can contain as few as 3 monomer molecules. For example, raffinose, a carbohydrate commonly found in beans and vegetables, is composed of 1 glucose, 1 galactose, and 1 fructose unit, while starch, which is another carbohydrate, is made up of numerous glucose units. Irrespective of the number of monomers, both of these molecules are polymers. Which is the best definition of a polymer? Polymerization. If polymers are chains of monomers, what holds the monomer units of a polymer together? To understand this concept, let's first look at the two types of polymers, linear and branched. Linear and branched polymers. Linear polymers are polymers in which the monomer units hold on to each other in a long chain called the backbone. This chain may not necessarily be straight. The bonds between atoms of monomers on the backbone can also twist to form, say, a spiral structure, which is essentially linear. Therefore, linear polymers start at one point and end at another point. Branched polymers, as the name indicates, have branches like trees. They have more than one starting point and many ending points. Covalent bonds and polymerization. Monomers come together in covalent bonds through a process given the name polymerization because it produces polymers. A covalent bond is a chemical bond involving the sharing of pairs of electrons between atoms. For example, in a molecule of starch, there is sharing of electrons between the atoms of one glucose monomer with another glucose monomer. Other monomers, like amino acids and nucleotides, form covalent bonds to produce complex proteins and nucleic acids, respectively. These covalent bonds, however, are not of equal strength in different molecules. For example, though polymers like starch and cellulose are made up of the same glucose monomers, the strength of covalent bonds in these polymers differs. The covalent bonds in starch are relatively weak, whereas those in cellulose are much stronger. Thus, little energy is needed to break down starch, whereas the breaking down of cellulose requires a lot of energy. What type of polymer can be described as having only one starting point and one ending point? Dehydration synthesis and hydrolysis. During the process of polymerization, monomers are joined together by a process called dehydration synthesis. As this name suggests, a covalent bond is synthesized by the loss of a water molecule, dehydration. For example, when two glucose molecules come together to form maltose, a water molecule is eliminated, as shown in the image. Now, if the maltose formed in the earlier reaction is broken down using a water molecule, it will split to give two glucose units. Because water is used to break the covalent bond present in maltose, this reaction is called hydrolysis. It is a complete reversal of the dehydration synthesis that we saw earlier. Dehydration synthesis example. To see dehydration synthesis in detail, note this series of images. In image 1, there is a chain of glucose monomers in the form of a growing carbohydrate polymer. At one end of the chain is an OH negative ion present in the natural structure of a glucose monomer. Near the polymer chain is an unlinked glucose monomer with an H positive ion as part of its structure. In image 2, note how the OH negative ion and the H positive ion break free of the glucose structures and bond together to form water. That allows the starch chain to form a covalent bond with the unlinked glucose, synthesizing a larger carbohydrate polymer. Exergonic and endergonic reactions. Much of the chemistry that makes life happen involves the making and breaking apart of polymers. This process involves energy that can be seen in two types of reactions, exergonic and endergonic. The breaking of covalent bonds releases energy. Processes that release energy are called exergonic reactions. For example, Respiration releases a great amount of energy by breaking the bonds between the complex monomers in food molecules and converting them into simpler forms. This energy is then used by an organism for things like locomotion or growth. In respiration, glucose is broken down to release carbon dioxide and water along with energy. Here's a representation of that process. C6H12O6 plus O2 yields CO2 plus H2O plus energy.
Why do energy changes occur? This balloon contains a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. Ignite it, and the hydrogen and oxygen combine, giving out energy and forming water. The individual atoms in each molecule are held together by chemical bonds. Hydrogen atoms are held together by a single bond. Oxygen atoms are held together by a double bond. When a reaction happens, these bonds are broken and new ones are made. Bond breaking requires energy. But when water molecules form, new bonds are made. Bond making gives out energy. In an exothermic reaction like this, more energy is given out than taken in. So what's happening in this endothermic reaction?
Processes in which energy is used up or absorbed are known as endergonic reactions. A good example of an endergonic reaction is photosynthesis. During photosynthesis, plants use solar energy to produce food, mainly in the form of glucose. Here's a representation of that process. CO2 plus H2O plus energy yields C6H12O6 plus O2. Note that unlike exergonic reactions, endergonic reactions are characterized by the absorption of energy. Which is true for dehydration synthesis? Polymers and life. In the beginning of this lesson, you read about the different items made up of polymers that David uses every day. Many of the items he used were examples of synthetic polymers that don't occur in nature. In the course of this lesson, you have also seen examples of some natural polymers. These polymers are found in all living organisms in the forms of building materials and storage substances. They also play an important role in biochemical reactions. The basic organic compounds found in all living organisms are carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins, and each of these organic compounds, except lipids, are polymers. Some examples of natural polymers found in plants include cellulose and lignin, which give structure to plants. Another polymer is starch in plants, which stores glucose and therefore energy. As you know, starch and cellulose are made up of the same monomer unit of glucose. However, the covalent bonds in starch are weaker compared to those found in cellulose. Polymers in animals and humans. Polymers are also found abundantly in animals and humans. Protein is a natural polymer formed of monomers of amino acid molecules. Protein is the main component of our skin, organs, muscles, hair, and fingernails. Human hair and all animal feathers, furs, and even hooves are made of proteins. Carbohydrates are another type of polymer found in all living systems. Carbohydrates play important roles, such as acting as energy storage molecules. They also provide structural support by forming hard shells that protect animals. Another polymer, DNA, is responsible for determining who we are, our inheritance. It also directs the creation of proteins at the cellular level. Polymerization in proteins. To see how proteins are formed from combinations of amino acids, look at image 1, which shows 2 generic amino acids. All 20 amino acids have a similar structure that includes an amino group of H3N positive, a carboxyl group of CO2H, a solitary hydrogen atom, and an alpha carbon. Each amino acid has a different element, or group of elements, called the R group, that makes it unique. In image 2, the carboxyl group from one amino acid bonds with the amino group from another amino acid to form a peptide bond. The 2 amino acids come together to form a protein through the process of dehydration synthesis. The carboxyl group provides an OH negative ion, and the amino group provides an H positive ion to produce a water molecule as a byproduct. Hydrolysis in carbohydrates. Earlier, we saw dehydration synthesis bind a glucose monomer to a starch polymer. The reverse process, called hydrolysis, is the basis for digestion in animals. Animals ingest organic molecules, like carbohydrates, as food. To break down this food, the digestive system uses water to break the bonds between the monomers, often with the help of enzymes. In image 1, a long chain of glucose monomers exists in the form of a carbohydrate, like starch. A water molecule is available. Then, in image 2, notice that the bond is broken. The OH negative ion in the water breaks free to connect to the lone glucose monomer, breaking the covalent bond in the starch. The resulting H positive ion connects to the remaining polymer chain of glucose monomers. This same process breaks down other organic polymers, like proteins.
Click each magnifying glass to learn more.
Corpuscle. Corpuscle.